Well, Jordan Montgomery did the thing and exercised his option for 2025 to the surprise of nobody. We will be discussing more on what this means for the Diamondbacks and for Monty for 2025 and more right now in 30 seconds. Don't go anywhere. And welcome into another edition of the PHNX D-Backs podcast right here on PHNX. My name is Derek Montilla, occasionally known as your mayor of PHNX. This man next to me is the one and only Thunderstick Jesse Friedman, occasionally known as my vice mayor, even though I don't know if he still deserves that or not. Welcome into another edition of this show.
Hurtful.
I know it is. It is. I mean, you've earned it back, but I mean, there was still some dissension, and the election has been weird, and I don't even know when it comes to an end.
Is there an election?
Is there even an election? I don't know. I think Espo had to drop
You guys
out due
backed
to
off the political ads in a way that
you
the
wish everybody
actual
did.
candidates have not
Yeah,
done,
no, I'm still getting those text messages and I'm still getting those phone calls, but it'll all be over soon enough. As is Jocktober, Jesse. But before we say goodbye to Jocktober, we do have to give out an award for best Halloween costume of 2024, and it has to go to this particular couple for not only a tremendous amount of accuracy here depicting what happened in the World Series, but also just for the timeliness of this particular costume. Also, this gentleman portraying Austin Capobianco looks insanely like him. I mean, the depiction is like no other, Jesse, and I mean, just overall, the wall, the glove, everything about this. I've never seen a baseball costume that I think was this perfect. Maybe the cards. I like the kids that look like a baseball card. Those are fun, but that one's pretty good.
She doesn't look really all that much like Mookie Betts. I guess that would be the one flaw.
That's the kicker. Yeah.
But I guess we have to give it.
You gotta give them points for that.
They executed this pretty well. I am curious though, like, as they were wandering around, presumably trick-or-treating in the neighborhood, did they maintain this exact
that pose? That's
like,
a good point.
Like as they're walking along the sidewalk? Because that would make me appreciate this all the more if they found a way to do that.
And honestly, like going back, if we could put that image back up, what could happen here is this could be a single person costume. It's a fine couple's costume, but if you had a mannequin arm with a glove on it attached to the wall and you were walking around holding onto it with both hands, then everybody would instantly know what you are. But you're right, Jesse. Yeah, this is a little weird. You have your wall blocking your lower region. I guess it's a little risque there, I guess, in overall where it's at, but also again accurate as to how it happened in real life. So kudos to those people again for their timeliness. Also, it took no time for Jordan Montgomery to exercise his player option to return to the Arizona Diamondbacks for 2025. He's exercised his $22.5 million player option with the D-backs, according to Mark Feinstein, and that was as expected, Jesse. I know there was a lot of discussion that maybe he shouldn't. We asked Archie yesterday about, like, hey, would have what Ken Kendrick said impacted you enough to not take that money? And the answer was a resounding no. And obviously, it was here for Jordan.
Yeah. This is to the surprise of no one, right? Anyone thinking that Jordan Montgomery might, go elsewhere just because Ken Kendrick said what he said. I don't think that was ever going to be the case. Maybe it is true that Ken was trying to steer Monty in that direction with the words that he said, but that's not how this works. If you contractually owe someone $22.5 million who is not going to be able to make that money on the open market, it makes sense to exercise the option and take the money. And I would have done the same thing if I were Jordan Montgomery. And I think everyone watching, listening, if they're honest with themselves, would have done the same thing, right? This is how the industry works. Even if you do not pitch up to your contract, Jordan Montgomery earned the right at having a vesting player option on the back end of this deal, and probably should have earned a lot more than that, right? He probably should have signed a 4 or 5 year deal last winter. That ultimately didn't come to fruition. So yeah, no huge surprise on any of this for me.
So the good is that Jordan Montgomery has all the reasons next year to come out and be his best version of himself. We've talked about this in the past few shows, but several guys, including Zach Gallen and Merrill Kelly, have all the reason in the world, personal reasons, to go out there and just shove this year. And so there is that factor. Now with Jordan Montgomery returning for this money, maybe he lives up to earning it. And I think that's what people want to see more than anything. Like, I can understand the lack of faith in Montgomery from what we've seen this year. A lot of people have already given up on him, but his career numbers still suggest that he is a very, very good pitcher. And we know that last season was erratic at best, right? Not just in actually not having a spring training and going through the free agent process and having it be a huge disappointment, but, you know, having to fire your agent, which is one of the most powerful agents in all of sports, having to go on beyond that and still perform despite your dissatisfaction with the situation that you're in, and the fact that the person that you're no longer partnered with got you into that situation. I mean, that maybe that ate away at him a little bit, and then, you know, you have the lack of performing well. You mix that with, you know, everybody kind of being disappointed in him just very quickly, and, you know, again, it was a bad season. It was a recipe for disaster. I can understand him feeling a little bit like, you know, that there's a chance at redemption here, not only for the Diamondbacks, not only to come back and kind of live up to what he was supposed to be in another year, but for himself to come out to make that amount of money based on the fact that he did not have a good season and rebound, come back and show teams that he is still the pitcher that he has been in the past.
Let's take a look at his 2024 stats, shall we?
I don't really want to, no. You're going to make me do it anyway. All right, well, here's the stats.
So Jordan Montgomery had a 6.23 ERA.
The worst.
The worst minimum 100 innings pitched in all of Major League Baseball. He had a 1.65 whip, all kinds of traffic on the base paths. Through 117 innings, a 15.6% strikeout rate, which for those of you who may not be too familiar with that, it's not very good. League average is about 22%. That's around where Montgomery's been in the past. So that was an enormous drop off in terms of strikeouts, and then his walk rate also climbed last year. This past season, 8.3% walk rate there, which is basically right at league average. Jordan Montgomery usually excelled in that regard, was much better. The batting average against, I mean, batting average is certainly not everything at this stage in baseball, but a 312 opponent batting average kind of tells you everything you need to know in some ways. There was a ton of traffic on the bases against Jordan Montgomery all season long. And somehow, Derek, we didn't have this on the graphic there. Maybe this is unfair to Monty, but he did have an 8-7 record. So for those of you, for the traditionalists out there who value record as a stat for pitchers, Montgomery came out okay in that regard. So
no, I don't care about that, Jesse. We've talked about wins and losses not mattering, and you know it. However, overall in his career, even with that terrible season factored in, his career stats are much better than that. And I think that's what we're taking a look at here. Overall, he's a 4.03 ERA, 1.27 WHIP, and 872 innings pitched. 21.5% strikeout rate, which, like you said, is much closer to that league average. 6.8% walk percentage and a 254 opponent batting average. So this is more of what the Diamondbacks expected to get, even on a bad season. You know, like this right here is a bit, you know, I guess what you would expect the worst to be. And Jordan Montgomery was far worse than this, right? So,
yeah,
I mean, there's no doubt that he wasn't a huge disappointment. However, like I said, there is a chance here for him to come back in 2025 and make all of that irrelevant, you know, like finish his story with the D-backs and have a good season and have people start to say, obviously last year was bad due to a bunch of variables and factors that caused him to have a pretty rough season.
It's crazy to me in retrospect to think about how the biggest selling point for Jordan Montgomery when the Diamondbacks acquired him was his stability. The fact that you could count on him to post 180 innings, whatever it is, a sub-4 ERA. He'd done that year after year after year, right? 2023, 3.20 ERA, made 32 starts. 2022, a 3.48 ERA in 32 starts. 2021, a 3.83 ERA in 30 starts. He was never the kind of guy that you necessarily wanted starting game one of a postseason series for you, but you figured that the floor was really high. And it just goes to show the volatility of pitchers and really everyone in this sport that we all love, right? Like these sorts of seasons do happen. And obviously there were some factors at play that are identifiable. The fact that he missed spring training and had a very odd buildup to the season. But at the same time, there's some other factors here that I continue to not really understand. Does, a mile and a half, 1.5 miles per hour on your fastball, like, is that the difference between Montgomery having a 3.2 and a 6.2? It's hard for me to talk myself into that. So there's other things at play here. I've tried to break some of them down in some written stories over on our site, but whoever the Diamondbacks' new pitching coach is, they're going to have, it's going to probably not be a very easy thing to figure out what exactly went wrong for Montgomery in 2024.
Even if Montgomery performed the way he did with the Cardinals last year before he was traded to the Rangers, 3.42 ERA.
Yeah, he was really good. Yeah.
And again, there are outliers. There are short seasons earlier on in his career with the New York Yankees where he posted similar ERAs and very, very small sample sizes. But I do think that this year could be an outlier. I guess it's more of hope. I feel like it's more than just hope. Like I feel like looking at these numbers and knowing the factors in, I mean, you can call it excuses, and I understand that. You can call it whatever kind of loser talk you want to call it. The fact of the matter is that there were a lot of variables that impacted Jordan Montgomery, and we don't know what he can be. Now, those are washed this year. He's going to have a normal season, and as long as he stays healthy, he is going to be he's going to have no reason to not go out there and shove and be the best version of himself. So if he isn't, then I mean, again, then this whole thing is a bust. I still think if after all is said and done, you get one really good season out of Jordan Montgomery, this ends up not being nearly as bad of a signing as it appears to be at this moment right now in time.
What is, like, if you had to name an ERA that you would be satisfied with in 2025 for Montgomery, like assuming that he stays reasonably healthy, like if he has a 4.5 ERA, is that okay?
It would probably have to be a lower 4 ERA, closer to 4. Like maybe nothing above 4.25. And again, that might be splitting hairs there between what you just said and reality. But the closer to 5 it is, the more it's going to just still feel like a huge disappointment compared to these other numbers that he's had throughout his career. Right. So I would have to see something more like that career ERA of 4.03, Jesse, or honestly, I mean, to be satisfied, to be like happy with him.
Yeah, to be happy with the contract as a whole.
Sub 4. Like, and honestly, yeah, it doesn't even have to be great, but sub 4 ERA, which is pretty damn good, is still enough for me to feel like, well, last year sucked. We washed it. It's rough that it happened, but this is the guy that we were hoping we could get. I still think, again, that this team, even though this team relied so much on offense this past season, they shouldn't have had to rely on offense so much. And the next year's team could be a completely different animal with all of these guys in contract years, with Eduardo Rodriguez healthy, with everyone having a full offseason versus what, coming off the high and everything that they did last postseason. It's just going to be different, I think, for this team. I believe very strongly that the core of this team that could be a winner is still there. And I think Jordan Montgomery could be a part of that.
Yeah, I guess there's like a number, there's an ERA that would allow him to stay in the rotation, right? Which obviously I don't think he really met this past year, given that the Diamondbacks did eventually remove him from the rotation. So maybe if he has like a 4.5 ERA, he finds his way, to maintaining his job for the entire season. But yeah, it is another question of like, what does he have to do for you to feel happy with his 2025 season? And yeah, I think I fall somewhere along the lines of what you just said. If the ERA starts with a 3, or a 2, I guess would be fantastic. But if the ERA starts with a 3, then yeah, you can kind of talk yourself into 2024 just being a weird aberration and the late start, and maybe that had bigger effects than we really could have imagined. And with a normal buildup, and as you talked about earlier, the motivation of a contract year, which I think is a real thing to some extent, maybe we do get a much better version of Montgomery in 2025.
If you want to motivate me, offer me more money. You know what I mean? If you want to see the best out of me, tell me like, hey, if you do good, I'm going to give you even more money than you think you're going to get, right? Like there's no doubt for a lot of guys, especially guys in the position that all three of these pitchers are in, that they don't have all the reason to go out there and do the thing next year for themselves. I mean, I am a bit concerned about how like the team chemistry and such is going to be impacted by all these changes, including the pitching coach changes, Tony Perez-Chica leaving, and everything else. But I am maybe a little excited at what Archie was talking about with Goldie coming in and maybe being a little bit of a clubhouse dad. At this point, he's in the right age to finally be that.
You've really talked yourself into Goldie coming back. I know. Huh? You're just making the assumption.
It's
now?
A whole thing at this point. Yeah, I know. But
Jim Bowden, I was just looking at this, estimated 1 year $15 million for Paul Goldschmidt, which to me makes the benefit of going to Goldschmidt a lot less. Like if you're only saving a few $1 million between him and Christian Walker,
correct,
it kind of feels like you should just pay Christian Walker at that point. My inclination is that Goldie gets less than 15, but he did just win an MVP 2 years ago. So we made the Carlos Santana comp. Like Carlos Santana, there are some similarities between the season that Goldie just had and the season that Santana had in 2023, but Santana has not been an MVP caliber player within the last few years. So Goldschmidt, his name, I mean, he has a case to be a Hall of Famer, right? And he's not all that far removed from performing at that level.
Another thing that kind of sticks with me that Archie said yesterday in regards to Paul Goldschmidt is that if they didn't give Paul a long-term deal, then who would be worthy of it? Right. Who are they going to give it to? Right. And now I feel like the same could be said about Christian Walker. Maybe not a long-term deal, but something long-term that keeps him here based on what he has done for this team and what he has meant to this organization. So again, that's why I think we reiterate as we cover these first baseman replacements, we continue to say the best replacement for Christian Walker is Christian Walker.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of those things that could go beyond, just bringing back a very talented player. It could speak volumes to the clubhouse. So
I think the situations are pretty different, right? Like Goldschmidt was a lot younger when he hit free agency.
For sure. Oh yeah.
Walker.
And he was like he meant so much to the organization.
Yeah. And Walker does too. Like to your point, Walker, I think in terms of just the storyline, is a similarly great story. Like Goldschmidt was taken in the 8th round, emerges into a superstar. Walker, not exactly a superstar caliber player, but his story is also remarkable, like getting passed around on waivers as much as he did. The Diamondbacks eventually landing him and having him behind Goldschmidt and then eventually being able to give him an opportunity. The storylines are similar, but I do think that there is some risk. Like if the Diamondbacks go out and if it takes $65 or $70 million over 3 years to get Christian Walker, like, that's his age 34, age 35, and age 36 seasons. There is some risk there. You might on the back end, like is the age 36 season, is Christian Walker still going to be a middle of the lineup type hitter as you're paying him, $20-25 million? I don't think that's a guarantee. But I agree with you that the best way to replace him is just to bring him back. And there's going to be some risk no matter what you do. But for someone like him, it's not all that hard to justify that risk.
Well, of course, I'll tell you one great value that you can get is our Die Hard membership right now with our introductory offer of just $48 for a year. That's just $4 a month. Again, you spend more on coffee than that. At least some of you do, but it is a great time to sign up and join us. Become part of the family. You get that free t-shirt from the PHNX locker. You get so much more, including all of our official content. You get those episodes of Ask Archie that are for diehards only. You get all of Jesse's written content, which is incredible. And of course, you get access to the Discord Lounge, which is the best place to be an Arizona sports fan. You also get discounts on events like our upcoming Desert Duel golf tournament out at the Raven and so much more. So make sure to join us over here and become part of our diehard family.
It really is worth it. Just real quick, it really is worth it just for Ask Archie, because the answers that Archie gives to the questions that our diehards submit are fantastic. It's really like the best content that we ever have a small role in this case in creating. So yeah, if you become a diehard, you just get an opportunity to just ask Archie Bradley like whatever you want, and we'll ask him for you, and it's pretty great. So
and what's insane is he's literally an open book, and there's no doubt he's going to get himself in trouble on this show one of these days. And I can't wait for that to inevitably happen. But I will say, yesterday his answer alone on going through the arbitration process is worth the price of admission.
That will release soon, and it's incredible. It is fantastic.
I was gonna say he might be getting not only himself but the league in trouble.
Yeah, he might be revealing entirely too much information about a lot of things. But again, make sure to join us here. I'll say right now that introductory offer, it's a little bit more than the price of a t-shirt. So if you have considered purchasing one of our pieces of merchandise, you get that t-shirt for free. Plus, for about $13 more, you'll get yourself a whole bunch of fun content, and of course, you'll get all of our Discord community, I guess, which is sometimes the best people to watch and be around any sporting event with. Sometimes. Talking about you, Elizabeth. All right. Well, on the other side of this break, we are going to talk about a new potential target for the Arizona Diamondbacks as far as free agency is concerned. A very exciting young player that it's definitely not only the Diamondbacks interested in him, so don't go anywhere. Of course, speaking of our events, we have some wonderful events coming up in Chicken and Pickle in Glendale, which is an incredible facility for you to go play pickleball at, learn pickleball, or just meet and hang out with your friends. Right now, you can sign up for our Cardinals tailgate at Chicken and Pickle. We got an exclusive bar area for PHNX tailgates now. We got merch giveaways. There'll be yard games, drink deals, and so much more. Of course, we'll also be hanging out there, and it is the best place to hang out and have a good time with us watching Cardinals and, of course, watching football, having some good food. Chicken and Pickle is an incredible place to go to, even when we're not having our events, but it is even better when we're there. We're also having our PHNX Trivia Night at Chicken and Pickle on November 7th at 6:30 p.m. Again, that's a free event. You register your team up to 4 people for free. I will be hosting, so you'll get to come see me and this mustache live in person. And of course, you can register at gophnx.com/events. Head to chickenandpickle.com to see all the fun you can have at their Glendale location. Of course, also shout out to Desert Financial Credit Union. Desert Financial, for more than 84 years, has been Arizona's largest, most trusted local credit union. They are dedicating themselves to creating exceptional experiences by giving back to the community and providing financial solutions that help make your life better. They got me started on my home ownership journey, and hopefully they can get you started as well. You can look to Desert Financial for checking and savings accounts, mortgages, loans, credit cards, investment options, and so much more. When you open a free checking account online, get $200 in bonuses. Get started by visiting desertfinancial.com/200 today. Well, Jesse, disappoint me. Tell me about another amazing pitcher the Diamondbacks are connected to that is inevitably going to sign with the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he's necessarily going to sign with the Dodgers. There's maybe a greater than 50% chance that he does. Well, we'll get into the logistics of signing him a little bit later. The Diamondbacks do have some reported interest here. This is not just complete speculation. And yeah, we're talking about 22-year-old Japanese sensation Roki Sasaki. We throw up his stats from the 2024 season. This is, of course, out in Japan in the NPB. These are some pretty good numbers. A 2.35 ERA, a WHIP just over 1. He threw 111 innings this year, 10.5 Ks per 9, 2.6 walks per 9. He was 10-5. these are really good numbers. He is arguably the best pitcher in Japan right now, certainly one of the best pitchers over there. And he might be posted to be available this offseason. Again, we'll talk about that a little bit more later. But in terms of the player that he is, if he were on the open market and we're not subject to some of the restrictions that we'll talk about later, he's the kind of guy who could get $200+ million, maybe $300+ million. We just saw Yamamoto get 325. He is that caliber of pitcher.
He had some stronger numbers in 2023 than he did in 2024, but still a very young player with an incredible arsenal as far as his fastball, splitter, slider. He's got a fastball that, is 99 miles per hour, somewhere in there, 97 miles per hour. Slider has some incredible movement on it. I mean, he's definitely one of these guys that could potentially change your franchise. And we've already seen that with a few players that have come over from Japan. Obviously, Shohei Ohtani being a big name that you're going to immediately talk about, but also Yamamoto. You had Shota Imanaga with the Cubs. Like, there have been some really impressive pitchers coming over here and succeeding in Major League Baseball.
Yeah. Sasaki, I mean, the level of dominance here is extremely impressive. In April of 2022, Roki Sasaki threw a perfect game with 19 strikeouts. And then he followed that up by throwing 8 perfect innings to start his next outing. He unfortunately wound up giving up a hit in the 9th inning, so he wasn't able to complete back-to-back perfect games. But back-to-back perfect games are not normal. A single game perfect games with 19 strikeouts, also not normal. And granted, this is happening in the NPB. It is, the quality of hitter there is not quite what it is in Major League Baseball. But this is a guy who has elite level stuff. You mentioned the velo on the fastball. 97.1 miles an hour is what that averaged this season. Actually, a bit of a drop off from last year. He averaged 99 miles an hour on his four-seam fastball out in the NPB in 2023. Some of the movement numbers dropped a little bit this year as well. He was about 18 inches, of induced vertical break last year, down to about 16 inches, which is closer to average this season. For those of you who don't know, induced vertical break is basically the amount of ride on the fastball. Makes it generally harder to hit if that number is well above the league average. So the stuff here is really impressive. The splitter is probably his best pitch, a 25% swinging strike rate this year, which again was a drop off from last season when it was 31%, but still really, really impressive. So he's a guy who could come over to the big leagues, and I don't necessarily want to say he's like an ace from day one in the majors, but he very much could blossom into that, but before too long.
If there are any concerns besides the Dodgers signing him, it would be durability a little bit. He hasn't topped 100 innings once.
Yeah,
or he has only done it one time.
Yeah, he has only done it one time. I think that would be a pretty significant concern here. You've seen guys like Yamamoto and Imanaga come over from Japan recently, and you're right. Those guys are in kind of a different situation where they have a history of durability, of being able to make a whole bunch of starts and at least get somewhat close to 200 innings. That's something that we haven't seen Sasaki do. And I think beyond that, there are some concerns about what I was saying earlier about why did his stuff drop off so significantly from 2023 to 2024.
Sure.
It's not to say a 97 mile per hour fastball is a bad thing. But 97 is not the same as 99. And this is a guy who's 22 years old. You're not really expecting there to be any drop off and stuff, hopefully, at this stage in their career. So last season, he had a 1.78 ERA in the NPB, a 0.75 whip compared to a 1.04 whip this season. So he was very good this season, but last year he was extraordinary. And it's not super clear right now why he dropped off from last season to this season.
Well, and like you said, he even had a 100 mile per hour fastball in the WBC. So
he did. Yeah.
That drop off to 97 is a bit more significant. Again, that 1.78 ERA in 2023 versus the 2.35. Not a huge jump, but still, like you said, concern a little bit for why that's occurring. And again, there's also the fact that in general, pitchers in the MPB seem to have a little bit of an advantage with a different kind of ball, right? Their baseball isn't as big as the MLB ball, and it's like tackier, right? Like
it is. Yes, it is apparently tackier, which I guess makes it easier to spin off a breaking ball or whatnot. So yeah, I think you would want to factor in some regression in terms of the movement numbers on his stuff if he were to come over to the majors. And we did see that. You mentioned the 100.3 miles per hour in the WBC when he pitched here in the US. That's the velo certainly didn't drop off. 100.3, that's pretty good. But the movement did drop off. I mentioned earlier he was at 18.1 inches of induced vertical break on his fastball in 2023 in the NPB. Compare that to 16.8 inches when he was over here in the US. About a 4-inch drop with the arm side movement on that pitch. So yeah, you're gonna see a drop off inevitably in terms of the movement coming over to the US. But the movement numbers here are still impressive enough that even with some regression, you're still looking at a guy who could strike out a whole lot of major league hitters.
All right. Well, we have more on Roki Sasaki on the other side of this break, as well as maybe
signing him is going to be very complicated. I'll just say that.
It's going to be complicated for a number of reasons, including the fact he might just not be available.
Right.
So we're going to talk about that on the other side of this break. Don't go anywhere. I do implore you to head to brandedbills.com, though, and use our code of PHNX for 20% off your first order. Branded Bills is the perfect headwear and apparel company. Not only do they make amazing caps and apparel for you to check out and purchase on their website, but they can also make custom gear for your brand to stand apart from the crowd. They have, of course, you can start your order and their dedicated team will help you create the exact custom apparel you need. They do have partnerships with ASU and U of A, part of their campus collection, and they're a local company from right here in Mesa, Arizona. So of course, make sure to check out everything Branded Bills has to offer. Again, use that code of PHNX for 20% off your first order. Also, check out our friends at Circle K. I know it's this time of the year. It's not as easy to encourage you to stop by America's Thirst Stop and get a drink, but even when it's chilly outside, there's still options for you. Of course, you can get your coffee from Circle K, and it's going to be much cheaper than some of those other places you might be headed. You also can get yourself, of course, Froster or, of course, the Polar Pop for 79 cents if you are a part of the Inner Circle, which you can join for free by downloading the Circle K app today. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit CircleK.com for details. You'll also save yourself 25 cents per gallon on your first 5 fill-ups, and then you'll save 3 cents per gallon every day after that. So do not miss the opportunity to go check out some of Circle K's their own branded snacks because they are amazing. Make sure to get Damon a pack of the chocolate covered almonds, and now Lindsay's going to yell at me for me not telling you to get her one. So get one for Lindsay too, and then of course get yourself some snacks as well. America's Thirst Stop. Do not miss out on your chance. There's one right by you right now, so go to Circle K. All right, Jesse. Well, more on Roki Sasaki, including what he will cost, of course, which is not everything. It won't be a lot. No. And that would only be if he was allowed to come be a part of Major League Baseball, which his team would have to approve, right? He would have to grant him that option, which, of course, with his age, like what happened with Ohtani, the CBA classified Ohtani as an international amateur when he came in the league because he wasn't 25 years old yet. Sasaki, who's 22, would fall into that same category.
Right. Yeah. So this would be, he is an international amateur. That's how he would be viewed in the process. As you said, he's not yet 25 years old, and that's just sort of how it works. So his team over in Japan, the Marines, they would receive compensation if he were to come stateside. However, he would not receive very much. It would be about 20%. I believe it would be 20% of the value of the contract. But as an international amateur, you can technically only sign a minor league deal. This is a player who would probably get $300 million on the open market without any restrictions.
Correct.
Who would have to sign a minor league contract with a major league team. And there could still be a significant bonus, but not all that high. Teams only have your bonus pool that you can use on international amateurs. It only totals up to around $7.5 million. That's the team with the highest bonus pool every year, or this year at least. that bonus pool was only $7.5 million. And you can sort of increase that number via trade, but not by all that much. So the highest amount that any team could give Sasaki is in that range, probably just a little bit above $7.5 million. Maybe you could get it up to $8 or $9 million, something like that. But yeah, he's not gonna. He can't get paid all that much money because he is under 25 years old, and that means that his team in Japan, if they're getting 20% of his contract as compensation,
they can't get paid.
They can't get paid much either, right? 20% of $8 or $9 million, you're talking about probably under $2 million. Compare that to Yoshinobu Yamamoto when he signed a $325 million deal this past winter. His team received over $50 million in compensation because it's based on the value of the contract. So, he would have to get permission from his team,
which he did request last year,
which he requested last year,
and they declined,
right? And it sounds like he's probably going to request it again, but it's not really in their best interest, at least not financially, to actually go through with it, and they might just decline it again.
Well, and it's more than one thing, right? They're losing a great player, and they're also not receiving the compensation that they should receive. And at this point, his relationship, according to reports, is already strained with his team as a result.
Yeah.
So, I mean, from that perspective, the team really doesn't have much motivation to approve it should he request it again this year, right? Because again, the relationship's already strained. They've already made it clear that they aren't releasing him and making him available. But I mean, who knows? We really don't know what could happen. We don't know how teams over there are. I mean, it makes the team seem a bit greedy, but it also makes financial sense for more than one reason, right?
This is like if the Diamondbacks were in a similar position, it'd be like some team overseas wants Ketel Marte, and they're gonna pay you like $1 million for it. That would just feel dumb.
But if you wait 3 years, they're going to pay you $50 million.
Right, exactly. It'd be like, well, yeah, I'm going to hold on to my best player. And, if I am going to lose him, which I probably am, then I might as well cash in and get as much of a, economic windfall for my franchise as I possibly can. So it's a little bit hard for me to really fault the Marines in this situation. I guess they would... other players might gain respect for them as an organization. Maybe they attract other top Japanese talent if they see them going through with this and being like, no, we'll post you, even though we know it's not in our best interest financially to do so.
Sure.
But
when you see this happening, you as a player might decide, I don't want my situation to go that way. I'd rather go with a team that's going to be amicable with me in regards to a request like this.
Yeah, well, Shohei Ohtani was in a somewhat similar situation in 2017. He was also an international amateur when he originally signed with the Angels. He didn't get very much money at all. I think it was something about 10 million, maybe it was 13 million, something in that range. But the rules were a little bit different then. At that point, his team, the Nipponham Fighters, were able to request any amount of money that they wanted, up to 20 million. As compensation. And so they requested 20 million, and that's exactly what the Angels gave them. So it was a different system back then. In this case, the Chiba Hot Marines, I believe is what they're called.
The Hot Marines.
I think
Chiba
I missed.
That's part of there.
It's Chiba Lot. Sorry, it's Chiba Lot Marines is the name of this team in Japan.
Hot Marines is better.
Hot Marines, that would be that arguably that would be better. But in this case, they only could get 20% of the value of the contract. So it's a much different situation than Ohtani a few years ago.
So despite there being reports that the Diamondbacks are tied to Sasaki, there is a problem with the Diamondbacks actually having money to sign Sasaki, right? The international signing period ends this year on December 15th. So that would be, we would have up to December 15th to sign Sasaki. Diamondbacks only have $500,000 left to spend per Nick Picoro from AZ Central. Right. If it happened next year, they would have their full $6.9 million allotment, but they've already spent that this year.
Well, so it's a little complicated. Next year's signing period is completely different. So they haven't spent any of the 6.9 officially. However, as we've seen year after year after year with these international amateurs, a lot of times teams have handshake agreements with these 16, 17-year-old kids from overseas well before the signing period has even begun. So even though the Diamondbacks will get that full $6.9 million allotment, I think it's on January 15th, I want to say, when that signing period would begin again, they probably already have some players in mind that they're planning to sign with at least a portion of that money. So it's not a given that, I mean, is a team going to be willing to forego all other international amateur signings in order to just get Roki Sasaki and give him the highest dollar value that they possibly can? I could understand if a team was willing to go that route, but there's so many unknowns with this process right now.
Yeah.
Mainly just whether he's going to be available at all. That could be a bit of an obstacle.
Not to mention, the Diamondbacks are not the only team that is going to be interested in him. Not to mention, it's not going to just be the Dodgers. Every team in Major League Baseball is going to take up interest in Sasaki should he become available, right? So someone asked in the comment, when would that happen? We don't know. I mean, like we said, the international signing period ends on December 15th. So that I don't know if that serves as a deadline of any kind for the team. That's a good question. I'm not sure exactly when we would get news on if he is posted, but if it does happen, if he is posted at some point, it will be a huge story because maybe Corbin Burns is a more desirable free agent. Certainly Juan Soto is a more desirable free agent this offseason. But outside of those guys, like Roki Sasaki, you could argue would be the third best free agent available. And oh, by the way, the most he can possibly make is like $10 million, right? Every team, of course, would want to sign him. And the Diamondbacks, unlike some of the other situations, like with a Juan Soto, who's going to make a ton of money, the infrastructure in place here prevents teams from paying him all that much. And so it does mean that the Diamondbacks, at least financially, could give him pretty much the exact same amount of money as any other team if they really wanted to. Here's my thing is I do think, and again, the Dodgers may not have a chance at him, or they might. We don't know. I'll say this, though. Ohtani seems to be an unfair recruiting tool in a battle like this for international players, right? Like
and Yamamoto.
And I mean, because not only is there a relationship there, but we're getting to the point that young players the age of Sasaki have like grown up looking up to Ohtani, right? Like, and one of the reasons why they want to come play in Major League Baseball is due to him, due to the success he's had, due to just everything that his baseball career has been. So the opportunity to play with him would be one that's hard to turn down, especially if it was essentially an even playing field for every team and you got to decide which team you were going to go to just based on not one team paying you more money, but just based on where you wanted to go.
Yeah, and this is from a story at the Arizona Republic. Nick Picoro over there wrote about the possibility of Sasaki signing with the Diamondbacks recently. And this is a quote from that story. He said, "Many in the industry believe Sasaki is all but certain to sign with the Dodgers, who reportedly scouted all of his starts this season." And it does also mention that the Diamondbacks were present in some regard as well. Both general manager Mike Hazen and assistant GM Amil Sadeh were at one of his outings late in the season, according to Nick's story here. So the Diamondbacks were among the teams that I think dedicated the most resources to scouting Roki Sasaki over this past year. But yeah, you're right. I mean, the Dodgers, their apparatus for recruiting these guys is probably better than anyone else's. And it feels like if they really want a player, they probably can get him. So we'll have to see how this plays out. If it turns out he's not posted and we do wait a couple more years for Sasaki to turn 25, then you're talking about a much bigger contract. And I'm certain, other there would still be a lot of teams involved, but it would very much narrow the teams that were capable of signing him to a pretty small list.
Throw Major League Baseball in the trash. Just throw the whole league in the trash. This process has become unfair, and I don't like it. So anyway, we do have a little bit more to cover before we get out of here, and that little bit more is the end of Bob Costas's play-by-play career. Rest in peace. And I'm sure there's a lot of Diamondbacks fans that want that man to never call another Diamondbacks playoff game ever. And we'll talk about that on the other side of this break. So please do not go anywhere. Empire Today, of course, is a Valley favorite. Everybody knows Empire Today. And of course, if you are looking to upgrade your flooring in your home, shop at Empire Today. You get that at-home convenience, the right product for your needs, quick and professional installation, and a price match guarantee, not to mention a company that services their own warranties, so you won't have to track down a manufacturer's phone number. But Empire Today keeps it simple with a curated product selection that won't have you looking through thousands of samples. It will find out what you are looking for and find you the product that best fits your need. They also are an easy, quick, and convenient company to work with. And we know we don't want people in our house doing all of this, work for an extended period of time. So make sure that Empire Today, or if you're looking for new floorings, you go with Empire Today for their quick process. You can schedule a free in-home estimate right now. All listeners can receive a $350 discount when they use promo code PHNX. Restrictions do apply. See empiretoday.com/PHNX for details. And of course, a big shout out once again to Chicken and Pickle, our indoor, outdoor entertainment friends out there in Glendale. They have a huge complex with a casual restaurant, sports bar that boasts amazing pickleball courts, a variety of yard games, and enough space to kick back and relax with your favorite people. So, of course, if you are looking to just hang out and have a great time, Chicken and Pickle is the place. You can join us for our official Chicken and Pickle tailgates out there for Cardinals home games. And of course, you can check out, if you're new to pickleball, their newbie nights over there, which are perfect for you. You can get on the courts with others who are ready to drink and drink and dink, I guess is what we could say. There's instruction and facilitated play included, and every participant gets a $10 Chicken and Pickle gift card. So if you want to check out what all the rage is about with pickleball, make sure to go out there for their newbie night. Head to chickenandpickle.com to see all the fun you can have at their Glendale location. And again, a big shout out to them for hosting our Cardinals tailgate parties. Jesse, once again, Bob Costas has retired from play-by-play broadcasting. And I know after the World Series run the Diamondbacks had last year, and specifically, I think it was the NLDS against the Dodgers, I'm sure there's a lot of Diamondbacks fans that aren't going to miss him doing play-by-play broadcasting in Major League Baseball. He is a legend, though, and I don't mean to disrespect him like I obviously am doing, but I will say that Bob Costas has been the voice of sports for like my life. So I mean, he's just an incredible person. It's just there was a lot of favoritism in his voice at times when he was calling games. Not exactly an unbiased down the middle individual.
Yeah, I think that's fair, and there's been a lot of frustration from a variety of fan bases over the last few years.
Yeah, we're not the only ones to complain about this.
He's not only anti-Diamondbacks, right?
He has other teams he dislikes.
But you're right. Bob Costas is a total legend of not only Major League Baseball but really sports at large. The Olympics. It feels like he's always a big part of coverage of that event, which of course is huge, not only in the U.S. but across the globe. So yeah, he's a legend for a reason. And I think people sometimes you expect that a broadcaster, they're not the player, right? Like a broadcaster, there's not going to be any fall off in the quality of their work as they age.
Yeah.
But that's not the reality, right? I think at a certain point, broadcasters do in not the same way as players, but broadcasters also sometimes as they age, maybe they're not quite what they were, during the prime of their career, back closer to when they started. So
I think he's also like done enough different stuff that it's one thing, because I think some of the great broadcasters, right? You think of Harry Carey, you think just some of the legends in baseball, they did it their entire lives, and they did almost get better. Like they might not have been as sharp in some of their older years. Obviously, none of us are.
Yeah,
right?
Sometimes they get better too. That's a good point.
But like in Bob Costas's case, I think really what it is that he became a better interviewer and a better like host of kind of like a sports show, rather than necessarily being a play-by-play guy, which is might be how he feels, and that might be why he's retiring. I think that when you do interview people and you talk to people, you do have to have a certain amount of your opinion injected in there, but also just kind of keeping it open and whatever, right? Like with play-by-play broadcasting, I think even with great team play-by-play broadcasters, you still want them to be unbiased. You still kind of want them to just call it right down the middle, especially with a play-by-play guy. Let the color guy.
You want
be
a
the
team
one.
broadcaster to be totally unbiased?
I
You
mean,
want
yeah,
Steve Berthiaume to just be like Mr. Objectivity out there?
All I'm saying is that like in some cases, some people might find being a big time homer as a play-by-play guy to be a little bit too much.
Sure.
Right. I think people
homer,
just from a
yes.
professional aspect, some people do like the play-by-play guy being a professional. That's what I'm saying. There's a role to play, right? There's a role to play.
Sure.
There's a role on this show that both of us play. Jesse's a goddamn wild man, but he has to act like this on this show just to fill a certain role, right? Meanwhile, I am the most wholesome family man you've ever met in your entire life, right? But this is what we are expected to be. So, I mean, I think sometimes when it comes to like, again, someone like Bob Costas, especially calling, national games and things like that. Everybody kind of wants that. Everybody just wants that guy to be that. And again, his personality is great. He is a great sports mind. And he's at this point, like you said, sometimes, again, maybe that's it. Maybe doing multiple things has caused him to just kind of be a little bit more himself in the box. Whereas as a play-by-play guy, you should be a little bit more, unbiased and unparticular, right? So
I think, maybe there wasn't even, leave the bias stuff aside. I think just there's a certain amount of energy that you want to bring to big moments in playoff games. And
True.
It felt like that wasn't quite what you would hope it to be, at least for some of the moments that he called this season. But yeah, it really doesn't take away from what was an outstanding career as a broadcaster. And of course, his best work, Derek, happened when he broadcasted the Piston Cup once upon a time. So you're aware of this, right?
I am totally aware of it.
Okay.
What did Jesse Friedman just ask me if I got a movie reference?
Some people,
that's incredible. The
I
disrespect.
found that some people are somehow they miss the fact. Like Bob Costas, his face never shows up in cars,
but it
is his voice, and some people miss it. I don't know. I think I've seen this on social media recently. So
no, that's good stuff. Good stuff. But again, I mean, still a legend in the game. And someone said give all of his calls to Brian Anderson, and I think we don't disagree with that.
Yeah, Brian Anderson has really, really been phenomenal.
And again, I mean, see, that's kind of what you want. Brian Anderson has been a really good, play-by-play guy for baseball, and I think that's what we want. Like you said, though, sometimes no matter what, you don't stay at the top of your game. So, and that includes me over here. I'm getting up there, right? I don't know if I was ever at the top of my game, but I'm definitely on the decline.
We're gonna force you out before you progress too much.
Good.
Worry,
That's what I'm hoping for. I just want people to tell me.
We don't want your legacy to be tarnished.
Yeah,
so
no,
we'll
I appreciate it. I appreciate that. Well, we have no more baseball, but we will be back on Monday. Of course, we did talk a little bit about Ask Archie, but the latest edition of Ask Archie, which hasn't dropped yet, it's going to drop next week. But it's incredible. And again, if you have not grabbed that Die Hard membership yet, make sure to do so right now. It is a limited time intro offer. So again, if you've ever thought about getting a membership, now is the absolute best time to do so. You still get all those wonderful membership benefits. And again, become part of the family over here. I'll tell you, once you get in the Discord and you see all the squirrel memes in the Diamondbacks Discord chat, I think you'll immediately understand that you're in the right place, that you're in the place that you want to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's all about the memes, Derek.
It
always has been, and it always will be. So,
and speaking of low energy, my God. Also, speaking of picking things up, make sure not to miss our next edition of PHNX Plays. We just dropped. What was it? Game 2 of the NLDS between the Philadelphia Phillies and the Diamondbacks.
Don't miss Game 2 of the NLDS. History was made in Game 2.
It was one of the I'll just tell you this as a preview. Neither one of us have laughed as hard as we did while watching that game in our lives, potentially.
Suffice
at least not
to
lately.
say that the managerial tactics of MLB The Show questionable at best.
They don't line up. They don't line up with the real world, that's for sure. But we'll also be dropping, of course, Game 3 next week as well. So don't miss out on any of that. And again, when you talk about high energy, you won't want to miss us screaming our heads off about some of the again managerial decisions in these games. But of course, we appreciate you guys being here. At all times. We always thank you guys for stopping by. And of course, someone had a super chat there. It was a good question about Randall Grichuk. Let's hit that up before we get out of here. And it's our guy, Michael. Michael said, with Grich declining his option for what I feel would have been more than he's paid in free agency, do you think there was a clubhouse issue? I don't think Randall Grichuk is going to get less than his player option, frankly. I think he had a really good season, and I think this is his last chance to get a deal that might be a multi-year deal. I mean, not too long, but maybe a 2 or 3 year deal, which is probably what he's seeking. I mean, the one thing that we've heard again from Mr. Bradley, who shows up here from time to time, is that players are seeking that security a bit more than the annual value of those contracts sometimes.
Yeah. I think it's a fair point. Like, it's a $6 million option. Is Grichuk guaranteed to make more than $6 million in 2025? I don't think so. But
there's a good chance he could.
I think there's a pretty good chance he could. And it's also what you're saying about a multi-year deal versus just a 1 year deal. If you have an opportunity to go get a 2 year deal, then, as long as there isn't a huge difference in what the average annual value would be, you probably would rather have that security, be able to move somewhere and be able to stay there for a while. Of course, trades and there are other factors at play there, but
I mean, getting injured and just having that security of having another option, or another year on your career. I mean, there's
100%.
There's a lot of security there, even in a 2 year deal versus a 1 year deal. So,
of all the players that I could possibly, wonder if there was a clubhouse issue, Randall Grichuk, I mean, I don't think any Diamondbacks players are. They have a lot of players where that is very clearly not an issue, but Grichuk is certainly one of them. Seemed like he was a really great guy and a great veteran presence to have around. And he did make a lot of sacrifices this year, right? We talked a lot about how he could have should have had a bigger role than he did for much of the season. And yet he was very willing to just show up every day and, kind of ride the bench and wait for a left-handed pitcher to enter the game. And he had a lot of success doing that.
Yeah, he absolutely did. Someone else asked, since Jock hasn't declined his option yet, does that mean that he's going to return? I don't think that's the case just yet. You
have 5 days from the end of the World Series to exercise an option. So, I mean, maybe some of these decisions have been made and they just haven't been reported out yet.
Right.
So, I wouldn't read at all into the timing of any of these things. We're going to know about all of them here within a few days.
Well, we thank you guys so much for stopping by. Like I said, we will be back on Monday with another Mailbag Monday episode, so make sure to join us for that. In the meantime, make sure to follow us on Twitter. I am at Cap_Caveman with a K. This man is at Jesse N. Friedman. Of course, large intimate Kevin is on the ones and twos. You can follow him at Kev Tom Writes. I'm not going to explain to you how to find him there. He's not even going to put his Twitter handle up. It's a fun mystery for you guys to figure out how that's spelled. Our show is at PHNX_DBacks, but of course, all roads do lead to at PHNX_sports on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. We appreciate you guys for stopping by so much. We will see you guys on Monday. And in the meantime, have yourselves a wonderful weekend. It's a new month. Let's have a great start to this month.
It's nice outside, Derek.
It's beautiful outside. Let's hope the Diamondbacks can make some moves that help them be a better team next year. And of course, remember, kids, baseball is fun, but it's so much more fun, I guess, if Jordan Montgomery didn't pick up that option for next year.
We all silly like the mayor.